Good evening. Just hours ago, American defense systems registered something that forced an immediate reassessment of continental security. When the data reached strategic command, when analysts confirmed the readings, when senior officials processed what they were seeing, 4 critical military installations went into elevated readiness. Not with announcements, not through official channels, but through a protocol that hasn't been activated since the height of Cold War tensions. Because what Russia just demonstrated, what Moscow just proved it can do, fundamentally changes how the United States calculates its own survival. And I want you to understand exactly why. This wasn't a routine military exercise. This wasn't a scheduled weapons test. This wasn't diplomatic posturing or strategic signaling. What Russia achieved in the last 72 hours forced American defense planners into a reality they spent decades hoping would never arrive. Something so destabilizing, so far beyond the acceptable boundaries of strategic competition, that commanders used a phrase normally reserved for theoretical scenarios: response window collapse. And yet, it happened. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through how American intelligence discovered what Russia did, what this means for the strategic balance, why this changes everything Washington believed about its defensive capabilities, and why major population centers from New York to Los Angeles to Chicago are now operating under revised emergency assumptions for the first time in over 30 years. So stay with me. Because once you understand what Russia just accomplished, you'll realize the world you woke up in this morning is fundamentally different from the world that existed last week. It started with an anomaly, a thermal signature detected by an American satellite designed to monitor Russian strategic activities. The signature appeared in a region of northern Russia so remote that even dedicated surveillance systems provide only intermittent coverage. At first, analysts dismissed it. Equipment artifacts happen constantly. Atmospheric interference creates false readings. The system flagged it, logged it, and moved on. But then the second signature appeared. 11 minutes later, same thermal profile, same geographic origin, same energy concentration. And then the third, 9 minutes after that, 3 identical readings, same location, same intensity, same duration. That's when the system escalated the alert. Because nothing in the known Russian arsenal produces this specific thermal pattern. Nothing documented, nothing predicted, nothing that American intelligence had ever cataloged. The coordinates pointed to a facility that officially doesn't exist, not on Russian maps, not in declassified intelligence assessments, not in any public database. A location so classified that even Russian military personnel require special authorization to acknowledge its existence. When enhanced satellite imagery arrived, analysts saw something that shouldn't have been possible. A mobile platform previously assessed as theoretical was not only real, but operational. And it was cycling through what appeared to be activation sequences. Within hours, the assessment reached the Pentagon. Within hours after that, it reached the White House. And within hours after that, American military posture began shifting in ways the public wasn't told about. Because what Russia activated wasn't just a new weapon, it was something worse. It was a system designed specifically to eliminate the one advantage America has relied on for decades' time. Let me explain what that means. In strategic terms, warning time is everything. It's the gap between detection and impact. It's the window that allows leadership to assess, decide, and respond. For 70 years, American security has rested on one fundamental assumption. No matter what an adversary launches, the United States will have enough time to react. Enough time to detect the threat, enough time to confirm it's real, enough time to notify command authority, enough time to assess targets, enough time to decide on response, enough time to execute that response. Even with advanced missiles, even with submarine launch systems, even with hypersonic developments, there was always a window, small in some cases, measured in minutes rather than hours, but real, sufficient, survivable. What Russia just demonstrated destroys that window. This wasn't a missile test. This wasn't a new warhead. This wasn't an upgrade to existing capabilities. Russia activated a strategic platform designed to reach American territory faster than current detection networks can guarantee a response. That is unprecedented. That is destabilizing. That is why military installations went to elevated readiness without public announcement. Because if Russia can deploy this capability, and now American intelligence believes Russia can, the United States faces a strategic environment where warning time shrinks from minutes to seconds, where the gap between detection and impact becomes too small for human decision-making, where the fundamental assumptions underlying American security no longer hold. Now let's talk about why Russia did this now, because nothing in great power competition happens by accident. This wasn't random. This wasn't routine capability development. This was a message delivered at a specific moment for specific reasons. For years, the United States expanded its defensive networks closer to Russian territory, missile defense systems in Poland, radar installations in Romania, enhanced surveillance capabilities in Norway, cooperative defense agreements extending American military reach into regions Moscow considers vital to its security. From the Kremlin's perspective, this looked like encirclement, a tightening ring of American military capability designed to neutralize Russia's strategic deterrent. Every new installation, every new agreement, every new deployment represented another step toward a world where Russia's ability to respond to aggression became questionable. And when great powers feel their survival threatened, they don't accept vulnerability, they innovate around it. This new Russian capability is the result of decades of that fear. It's the result of watching American defensive networks expand. It's the result of calculating that eventually those networks might become effective enough to change the strategic balance. It's the result of deciding that Russia needed something American defenses couldn't stop. Fear drives innovation. Fear drives capability development. Fear drives decisions that reshape global security. That's what makes this moment so dangerous. Russia didn't demonstrate this capability during a period of stability. Russia demonstrated it during an era of maximum tension, sanctions, proxy conflicts, military buildups across multiple theaters, diplomatic relationships at their lowest point in decades. When states feel threatened, they take risks. When those risks involve capabilities that fundamentally alter strategic calculations, the world moves closer to the edge. But here's the part most people don't understand. This capability may not be designed for use. It may be designed for something more subtle and more dangerous, leverage. If Russia can bypass American defenses, every future crisis changes. Every confrontation carries different weight. Every American action must now account for a variable that didn't exist before. The United States loses freedom of action. Russia gains strategic leverage. And the calculations that prevented major power conflict for decades become unreliable. Great powers don't need to use weapons to change history. They only need to make others believe they can. And right now, the United States believes. Inside the Pentagon, the reaction was immediate. Analysts began reviewing detection timelines. Commanders began reassessing response protocols. Planners began modeling scenarios that previously existed only in theoretical exercises. The conclusion was uncomfortable. Current early warning infrastructure may not provide sufficient time to guarantee meaningful response if Russia employs this capability. In simple terms, America is more vulnerable today than it was last week, and that is not a sentence any American official wants to speak aloud. For decades, the United States believed its detection superiority provided ultimate security. Satellites, radars, signals intelligence, layered systems designed to ensure that no threat could arrive without warning. That confidence allowed American leaders to operate with certain assumptions about survivability, about response options, about the consequences adversaries would face. This Russian capability breaks that confidence. Now let's talk about escalation, because this is where the danger multiplies. The moment American officials confirmed what Russia demonstrated, the next question became obvious. How does the United States respond? Silence is unacceptable. No great power accepts increased vulnerability without action, but every possible response carries risks. Strengthen early warning systems. Russia interprets this as preparation for first strike. Deploy additional detection capabilities closer to Russian territory. Russia sees encirclement accelerating. Enhance strategic forces readiness. Russia matches the posture. Develop counter capabilities. Russia accelerates its own programs. Action and reaction. Move and countermove. Step by step toward a destination neither side wants. This is the logic of great power competition. This is the logic that built the Cold War. This is the logic that brought the world to the brink in October 1962. This is the logic that no nation, not even the United States, can escape. This is the logic Russia just intensified. Because now American planners must consider scenarios they previously dismissed. What if detection fails? What if warning time proves insufficient? What if the assumptions underlying response protocols no longer apply? These questions change everything. They change how forces position. They change how leaders think. They change how crises unfold. And Russia knows this. Moscow understands that demonstrating this capability creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates hesitation. Hesitation creates leverage. Leverage creates options that didn't exist before. The world hasn't seen this dynamic since the most dangerous years of Soviet-American confrontation. And even then, warning times were measured in minutes, not seconds. Let me be absolutely clear about what this means. Russia accomplished something no nation has ever publicly demonstrated. Not the United States, not China, not any nuclear power. Moscow proved it possesses a capability designed specifically to eliminate America's warning time advantage. That is unprecedented. That is strategically destabilizing. That is a fundamental shift in the global security architecture. And tonight, American military planners are revising protocols that haven't been questioned in decades. They're reassessing assumptions that formed the foundation of strategic stability. They're calculating responses to scenarios that were previously considered unlikely enough to ignore. Russia hasn't gained superiority. Moscow cannot match American capability across every domain. But Russia has gained something almost as powerful, the ability to make Washington uncertain. Because the United States must now think differently, must now calculate differently, must now consider a strategic environment where the margins that guaranteed security have dramatically narrowed. The era of comfortable assumptions is ending. And this moment, this demonstration, this capability, this shift marks the beginning of that end. Whether the world moves toward renewed stability or toward escalating confrontation depends on decisions being made right now. In Washington, in Moscow, in capitals around the world that suddenly must recalculate their own positions. Leaders must now manage fear without letting it drive policy, must respond to threats without accelerating spirals, must demonstrate resolve without triggering the very conflicts they hope to prevent. That is the burden of power in this new era. That is the danger of capabilities that compress time. That is the reality every strategic planner wakes up to today. The warning time that protected America for 70 years just collapsed. Russia made that happen. And what comes next will define whether this becomes a manageable shift or the beginning of something far more dangerous. Stay alert. This situation is not resolving, and it is moving into its most unpredictable phase.